I turned a spoiled brat's $60,000 Porsche into scrap metal. This entitled kid parked in my assigned spot every single morning, deliberately scratching my car while laughing in my face. His HOA president mom made my life hell whenever I dared complain about her precious boy. They thought I was just another pushover neighbor who'd take their abuse quietly. Big mistake. When I started digging into why this punk felt so untouchable, I uncovered something that changed everything. Sometimes the quiet guy next door isn't as helpless as bullies think. Comment below. What would you do if someone destroyed your property daily and got away with it? Let me paint you a picture. It's 7 a.m. on a Monday morning in March, and I'm already running late for work. I'm Michael Smith, 42 years old, and I've been living in Meadowbrook Heights for 8 years now. Nice suburban community, decent HOA rules, assigned parking spots. Everything was perfect until this punk kid showed up 6 months ago. I pull into our complex and see it immediately. That cherry red Porsche 911 squeezed into my assigned spot, number 23, the same spot I've been paying extra fees for since I moved in. But here's where it gets interesting. As I'm sitting in my Toyota, watching this entitled brat emerge from his fancy ride, he does something that changes everything. Tyler Morgan, and yeah, I found out his name real quick, takes one look at my car, one look at me, and then deliberately swings his driver door hard into my passenger side. SCRAAAACH. The sound of metal scraping paint echoes through the parking garage like fingernails on a chalkboard. Hey! I'm out of my car faster than you can blink. You just scratched my car! Tyler turns around with this smug grin that immediately makes my blood pressure spike. He's maybe 22, wearing designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, and he has this look. You know the one. The look that says, "What are you gonna do about it, old man?" "Oops," he says, and then he actually laughs. "Parking's tight around here. Maybe you should learn to park better." I'm staring at this kid, trying to process what just happened. 10 years of being a mechanic before I became an accountant taught me to spot intentional damage versus accidents. This wasn't an accident. This was a message. That was deliberate. You damaged my property. Tyler flips me off and starts walking away like nothing happened. Prove it, old man. Maybe next time you'll think twice about where you park. Now, here's where my accountant brain kicks in. See, I spend my days tracking down financial fraud, following paper trails, documenting evidence. So, naturally, I start looking for details everyone else would miss. As Tyler walks away, I notice something interesting about his car. There's a yellow visitor parking pass hanging from his rearview mirror. The problem is, visitor passes for our complex are supposed to be green for 2024. Yellow passes were last year, 23. Why would someone have an expired visitor permit? And more importantly, why would someone with an expired permit feel entitled to park in assigned resident spots? I approach Tyler at the mailboxes, my curiosity overriding my anger. "Hey, that visitor pass expired last year." For the first time, his cocky confidence flickers. Just for a second, but I catch it. "Mom handles all the paperwork," he mutters. Yellow passes were 22 to 23. It's March 2024. His jaw tightens. "Mind your own business, old man." That's when Laura Stone appears. If you've ever lived in an HOA community, you know the type. Mid-40s, perfectly styled hair, clipboard always in hand, and an attitude that screams, "I am the homeowners association." Laura's been our HOA president for 3 years, and she runs this place like her personal kingdom. "Problem here, Tyler?" she asks, appearing beside us like she was watching from her window. "This guy's harassing me about parking," Tyler complains, his victimized tone so convincing I almost believe it myself. Laura turns those cold blue eyes on me. "Mr. Smith, Tyler has every right to use visitor spaces." "He's not in a visitor space," I point out. "He's in my assigned spot, and his permit has expired." Laura's smile doesn't reach her eyes. "I'll handle Tyler's documentation personally. Don't interfere." The way she says interfere makes it sound like a threat, like I'm the problem here, not the kid who just vandalized my car. Walking back to my Toyota, I notice something else that sets off my fraud detection instincts. Tyler's behavior around his car is protective, abnormally protective. When neighbors walk by, he positions himself between them and the vehicle. When kids play nearby, he watches them like a hawk. And those phone calls, yeah, I see him making hushed phone calls beside that Porsche every evening, constantly checking his surroundings like he's worried about being overheard. 10 years of investigating insurance fraud taught me to recognize guilty behavior, and Tyler Morgan is guilty of something bigger than parking violations. That evening, I'm telling my wife Jennifer about the incident while we're cleaning dinner dishes. Jennifer's been teaching high school for 15 years, so she's seen every type of entitled kid behavior imaginable. That kid deliberately scratched our car, I tell her, still fuming about the repair costs. Are you sure it wasn't an accident? She asks, ever the voice of reason. Jennifer, I watched him do it. Door swing, scratch, laugh, walk away. It was intentional. She dries a plate thoughtfully. What about his expired pass? That's what bothers me most. Laura's covering for him, but why? The next morning, I make a decision that will change everything. See, being an accountant means I document everything. Every receipt, every transaction, every suspicious pattern. So I start treating Tyler Morgan like a fraud case. Photos of the scratch, timestamps of his parking violations, and documentation of his expired permit. If this kid wants to play games, I'll play them better. I'm building a case, piece by piece, like I do with tax cheats and embezzlers. Tyler parks diagonally across 2 spots that morning, blocking our neighbor's Honda. When she complains, Tyler just laughs. Tell Laura if you have a problem, he says, like her name is some kind of magic shield. This kid really thinks he's untouchable. But here's what Tyler doesn't know about accountants. We're patient, we're thorough, and we never give up until we find the truth. That evening, while I'm hauling trash to the dumpster, I catch something different. Tyler isn't just guarding his Porsche anymore, he's scanning the lot like he's waiting for someone. A dark SUV slows as it passes, its driver lingering on him a beat too long before rolling away. Tyler stiffens, clutches his phone, then disappears inside without a word. It's not just arrogance anymore. He looks like a kid trapped in something way bigger than parking disputes, and for the first time, I wonder who's really pulling his strings. Tuesday morning, and I'm approaching this Tyler situation like any other fraud investigation. Document everything, verify claims, follow the paper trail. My first stop is the HOA office, where our secretary has been fielding complaints about parking violations for years. Good morning, Patricia. Can you verify Tyler Morgan's visitor permit status? She looks up from her computer with this uncomfortable expression. Sorry, Mr. Smith. Laura says all vehicle inquiries go through her personally now. Now that's interesting. Standard permit verification takes 30 seconds in their system. Why the special protocol? I ask. Patricia glances around nervously. She was very emphatic about protecting Tyler's privacy. Said something about harassment concerns. Harassment concerns? For a simple permit check? My fraud detection instincts are screaming that something's not right here. Next, I start canvassing the community. In fraud investigations, you'd be amazed at how much information neighbors have been sitting on, waiting for someone to ask the right questions. My first stop is Patricia Wilson, a retired nurse who's lived here longer than anyone. Patricia, have you noticed anything unusual about Tyler Morgan's parking situation? Her expression immediately changes. Laura threatened me about discussing Tyler's car, she whispers, looking around like Laura might materialize from thin air. She said I could face harassment charges for talking about parking. Think about that for a moment. Harassment charges for discussing publicly visible parking violations? She's desperate to protect that boy, Patricia continues. Makes you wonder what he's hiding. Exactly what I'm thinking. Why would Laura use intimidation tactics to protect someone from standard HOA inquiries? That afternoon, I called my old friend David Wilson. We worked together at Murphy's Auto Shop for 10 years before I switched to accounting. David now owns his own place. And more importantly, he has access to vehicle identification databases that most people don't know exist. David, I need a favor. Can you run a VIN check on a suspicious vehicle? What kind of suspicion? He asks. I describe Tyler's behavior, the expired permits, the paranoid protection of his car, and the way he acts guilty about everything. Bring me the VIN number, David says. Also, funny you should mention stolen luxury cars. Got a veteran friend who lost a similar Porsche to car thieves 8 months ago. Been tracking the network ever since. A stolen car network? Now we're talking about something much bigger than parking violations. Getting that VIN number requires a bit of social engineering. The next morning, I approach Tyler with my best friendly neighbor smile. Beautiful Porsche. What year is it? Tyler's immediately suspicious, but he can't refuse to answer without seeming weird. 2019, he mutters. Mind if I peek at the interior? I'm shopping for something similar for my son's graduation. Now he's trapped. Refusing would be obviously suspicious, so he reluctantly opens the passenger door. While I'm admiring the dashboard, I memorize the VIN number visible through the windshield. Simple social engineering. Make the target think they're helping you while you gather intelligence. Tyler's nervous the entire time, constantly glancing around like he expects someone to catch us. Within 2 minutes, I have what I need. David calls me back within hours, and his tone immediately tells me we've hit something big. Michael, sit down. That VIN number matches my veteran friend's stolen car. He's been tracking this for months. My stomach drops. Stolen from a veteran? Staff Sergeant Miller. Lost his car during a medical appointment at the VA hospital. He wants to meet you. This changes everything. We're not talking about some insurance scam or parking dispute anymore. We're talking about a disabled veteran who had his recovery symbol stolen by thieves. David, can you arrange a meeting? Already texting him. Miller wants to meet tomorrow morning. The pieces are starting to fall into place, but I still don't understand Laura's role in all this. Tyler's behavior escalates in stranger ways. One morning, I spot him slipping into Laura's condo carrying a thick envelope, glancing over his shoulder like he's delivering contraband. Another night, instead of the usual swagger by his Porsche, he's scribbling notes on a pad and tearing the pages out, stuffing them into his jacket before bolting inside. It's no longer just cocky posturing, he's acting like someone under orders, someone terrified of being caught slipping. But here's what really gets my attention. Laura starts showing up whenever I'm near the parking area, like she's monitoring my movements, making sure I don't get too close to Tyler's operation. The woman who runs our community with an iron fist is personally invested in protecting this kid's secret. Why? Wednesday evening, while I'm reviewing my documentation, our neighbor stops by with interesting information. Michael, I overheard Laura on the phone yesterday. She said something about the neighbor getting suspicious and needing to handle this carefully. Handle what carefully? And why would my curiosity about parking violations require handling, unless we're dealing with something much more serious than expired permits? I'm starting to understand that Tyler's attitude and Laura's protection aren't just about HOA politics. They're about covering up a federal crime against a veteran who served our country and came home injured. That night, I'm going through my evidence when I spot something that makes my blood run cold. There's a black SUV parked across the street from our building, and the driver appears to be watching our complex. I've been doing surveillance work long enough to recognize when someone's conducting surveillance on me. When I look out the window 5 minutes later, the SUV is gone. David's veteran friend's story has me thinking about professional car theft networks. And suddenly, Tyler's expensive car doesn't seem like a rich kid's toy anymore. It seems like evidence of organized crime operating right in our suburban community. As I'm heading inside from checking the mail, I realize we might be dealing with something much bigger than one stolen car. If Tyler's driving a vehicle stolen from a disabled veteran, and Laura's using her HOA position to protect him, what other crimes might be happening under our noses? How many other families have had their recovery symbols stolen while Laura Stone provided cover? The more I dig into this situation, the more I understand that my simple parking complaint has uncovered something that could destroy lives. And judging by that SUV watching our building, someone knows I'm getting close to the truth. What if Tyler's car isn't the only thing that's stolen around here? Thursday morning arrives with the kind of crisp March air that makes you feel like anything's possible. I'm meeting Miller at David's auto shop, and honestly, I'm nervous. There's something about confronting the human cost of crime that hits differently than just following paper trails. When I walk into David's garage, I immediately spot Staff Sergeant Miller. He's maybe 44 years old, standing near the hydraulic lift with a cane. Wearing his dress uniform like this, meeting means something important to him. The moment our eyes meet, I understand this isn't just about a stolen car. This is about dignity, recovery, and hope that got ripped away by criminals. Mr. Smith, David says you found my Porsche. His voice carries that measured tone veterans use when they're trying to stay professional despite personal pain. I believe so. Red 911, stolen 8 months ago outside the VA hospital. Miller nods slowly. During my physical therapy session. Thought I'd never see her again. The story Miller tells me changes everything about how I view this situation. That car represents my recovery journey, he explains, his hand gripping his cane tighter. Bought it when I finally walked again without a wheelchair. Symbol of beating the odds, you know? I watch this combat veteran struggle with emotions that have nothing to do with money and everything to do with meaning. The worst part? These thieves specifically target disabled veterans. They think we can't fight back effectively because of our injuries. The calculated cruelty of that strategy makes my blood boil. Someone looked at wounded warriors and saw easy targets. Miller continues, I was inside the VA for 2 hours getting treatment for my service-connected injuries. Came out to find my recovery symbol gone. Police said these networks move fast, change VIN numbers, sell cars across state lines within days. Here's where I make a decision that surprises even me. Sergeant, I need a favor. Can you wait a few more days before contacting the police directly? Miller studies my face carefully. Why would you ask me to wait? Because I want Laura Stone publicly exposed, not quietly arrested. This community needs to see what we've been harboring. Miller considers this, and I can almost see his military training evaluating tactical options. Roger that. What's your plan? I explain my theory about Laura using her HOA position to provide cover for Tyler's operation. If we move too fast, she might destroy evidence or help Tyler disappear. But if we build an airtight case and expose them publicly, the entire community will see justice served. Miller agrees to coordinate with me, giving us time to gather evidence that ensures these criminals face full accountability. Friday morning, Tyler returns with the Porsche, but his behavior has completely changed. Instead of parking in my assigned spot, he uses the visitor area. Instead of that cocky swagger, he constantly looks over his shoulder. Something has him spooked, and I suspect it's related to my investigation. When Laura emerges from her condo, her demeanor toward me has shifted from annoying to openly hostile. Michael, I know you've been making inquiries about Tyler's vehicle. Just neighborly interest, I reply, keeping my tone neutral. Nothing neighborly about your obsession. This ends now, or consequences will follow. The way she emphasizes consequences sounds like a direct threat. What kind of consequences? I ask, genuinely curious about how far she's willing to escalate. The kind that makes people reconsider their priorities. Laura Stone just threatened me for asking questions about a stolen car. In what universe does that make sense unless she's part of the criminal operation? That evening, Patricia hurried over, clutching a small bundle of half-scorched pages she'd found blown under Laura's deck. She dropped these while trying to haul out trash bags, Patricia whispers, clearly shaken. I flatten the papers on my kitchen table, partial bank statements, some Guardian paperwork, and one detail jumps out immediately. Monthly transfers from Tyler Morgan's trust fund landing in Laura Stone's personal accounts. The ink is smudged, but the numbers are clear enough to expose theft. Patricia looks at me with fear in her eyes. She's hiding more of this. I'm sure of it. The next piece of information comes from an unexpected source. Tyler approaches me hesitantly on Friday evening, and for the first time, he doesn't look cocky or entitled. He looks scared. Look, about the scratch on your car, he starts, then glances around nervously. What about it? I ask, keeping my voice neutral. Laura's getting angry about your questions. Maybe you should stop. This is the first time Tyler has shown any concern for my well-being. Why do you care? Because I don't want anyone getting hurt. The way he says hurt makes me think we're not talking about hurt feelings. Hurt how? Tyler won't answer, just walks away looking more frightened than angry. A 22-year-old who drives a $60,000 sports car is afraid of a middle-aged HOA president? That tells me Laura Stone has power that goes way beyond community bylaws. Meanwhile, other neighbors start coming forward with their own observations. Our maintenance supervisor mentioned seeing Tyler having heated phone conversations behind his car, always in different languages he couldn't identify. Our mailroom attendant reports strange packages being delivered to Tyler's address, packages that require signatures but arrive when Tyler's not home, so Laura signs for them instead. Most interesting, several residents report seeing Laura meeting with suspicious men at the storage unit complex down the street. Men who don't look like contractors or community vendors. Men who look like they're conducting business that requires privacy. I'm starting to understand that Tyler's stolen Porsche is just one piece of a larger criminal network, and Laura Stone might be running the entire operation from her HOA presidency. Miller calls me Friday night with strategic military precision. How much longer before we move on this? He asks. Soon. Laura's getting desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. Roger, David mentioned you have accounting experience. Can you trace financial crimes? I explain my background in investigating fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering schemes. Perfect. If Laura is using her guardian status to steal Tyler's inheritance while running stolen car operations, we need evidence of both crimes. Miller is thinking like a military strategist, building a case that ensures maximum justice for maximum criminals. This isn't just about recovering his car anymore. This is about stopping an entire network that preys on disabled veterans and orphaned young adults. That evening, I'm watching through my window when I see something that makes my blood run cold. Laura is loading boxes into her trunk, moving with the urgent efficiency of someone destroying evidence. But here's what really terrifies me. Tyler's helping her, and he keeps looking toward my house with an expression I've never seen before. Pure fear. Not guilt, not anger, but genuine terror about what might happen next. As they work together in the darkness, I realize that whatever Laura Stone is running, it's much more dangerous than simple car theft. And tomorrow morning, when they realize how close I've gotten to the truth, my family and I might be in serious danger. Have you ever felt like you were getting close to uncovering something big, but weren't sure if you really wanted to know the truth? Let me know what you think Laura and Tyler are hiding, because what I discovered next changed everything. Saturday morning starts with an emergency HOA meeting notice slipped under every door. Urgent community safety concern, mandatory attendance. I've lived here 8 years and never seen Laura call an emergency meeting. My investigative instincts are screaming that this is connected to my inquiries about Tyler's car, but I have no idea how twisted Laura's plan really is. The community center is packed by 10 a.m. Families, elderly residents, everyone looking concerned about this mysterious safety threat. Laura stands at the front with her laptop and projection screen, wearing that fake concerned expression politicians use when they're about to destroy someone's reputation. Residents, we have a serious safety concern that affects our children's well-being. She clicks her remote, and suddenly I'm staring at grainy video footage on the screen. It shows a figure with a camera near our playground area, apparently photographing children. The room goes dead silent as Laura continues her character assassination. Michael Smith has been conducting unauthorized surveillance of children in our community. Every head in the room turns to stare at me. I feel like I've been punched in the stomach. Multiple families have reported feeling unsafe with his obsessive photography behavior toward young residents. Patricia, sitting 2 rows ahead of me, turns around with this look of horror and disappointment. "Is this true, Michael?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course not." That's not even me in the video, but even as I'm denying it, I can see doubt creeping into neighbors' faces. Laura continues with devastating precision. Pattern of obsessive behavior toward Tyler and other young residents suggests an escalating concern that requires immediate community action. Laura produces what she calls an evidence packet, photos of me lurking near the playground area. Except I recognize every single image. That's me investigating Tyler's evening phone calls. That's me documenting his suspicious meetings. That's me gathering evidence of criminal activity. But Laura has recontextualized every innocent action to look predatory and threatening. Witness statements about uncomfortable interactions, she continues, reading from official-looking documents. Documentation of harassment toward Tyler Morgan. The room is buzzing with whispered conversations, and I can feel my reputation disintegrating in real time. Parents are pulling their children closer. Neighbors who waved at me yesterday are avoiding eye contact. Laura Stone has just destroyed my standing in this community with professionally fabricated evidence. But here's where Laura makes her first mistake. David Wilson stands up from the back of the room. "Hold on a minute. Michael, that surveillance video is fake." The room goes quiet again, but this time, people are listening to technical analysis instead of emotional manipulation. "How can you tell?" someone asks. David walks toward the screen, pointing at specific details. "Background trees don't match our playground area. Shadow directions are impossible at the claimed timestamps. Someone created this professionally." Laura's confident expression flickers for just a moment. Professional editing software was used to composite Michael's image into fake surveillance footage. David turns to address the room directly. Someone with serious resources fabricated evidence to frame Michael Smith as a predator when he was actually investigating car theft. The room erupts in confused conversations. Some neighbors are looking at Laura with new suspicion, while others still seem convinced by her initial presentation. But David isn't finished with his technical analysis. He pulls out his tablet and projects his own images onto Laura's screen. Shadow analysis shows impossible lighting angles. Compression signatures indicate multiple editing sessions. Background elements photographed at different times of day than the foreground subject. David's presentation is destroying Laura's credibility piece by piece, but I can see she's not finished fighting. "These are serious accusations," Laura says, trying to regain control. "David Wilson has personal reasons to defend Michael Smith. They've been friends for years." She's trying to dismiss technical evidence with personal bias claims, but several neighbors are taking pictures of David's analysis with their phones. What happens next reveals just how desperate Laura has become. She starts attacking David's credibility, claiming he's part of some conspiracy to protect my predatory behavior. But while she's focused on destroying our reputations, she makes a crucial mistake. Patricia raises her hand with a simple question that changes everything. Laura, if Michael was really photographing children inappropriately, why didn't you report this to the police instead of handling it through the HOA? The room goes silent. It's such an obvious question that nobody thought to ask it until now. If Laura genuinely believed children were in danger, her first call should have been to law enforcement, not to her laptop to create a community presentation. Community safety requires community solutions, Laura responds, but her answer sounds hollow and evasive. Some situations are better handled internally before involving outside authorities. Tyler chooses this moment to approach me, and his timing couldn't be worse. Every eye in the room watches as he walks over to where I'm sitting. I'm sorry about what Laura did, he whispers, but his voice carries in the silent room. You knew she was planning this? I ask, loud enough for nearby neighbors to hear. She said you were a threat to family security. I didn't know she meant this. Tyler gestures toward the screen showing the fake surveillance footage. Several neighbors lean in to hear our conversation. What else is she planning? Tyler glances nervously toward Laura, who's watching our interaction with obvious alarm. I'm scared to tell you, he admits, and that admission of fear from someone who's been acting tough for months speaks volumes to the observing community. By the time the meeting ends, our neighborhood is split into 3 groups. About 30% still believe Laura's evidence and think I'm a dangerous predator who should be investigated by the police. Another 30% believe David's technical analysis and think Laura fabricated evidence to frame me. The remaining 40% are confused and want more information before choosing sides. But here's what matters. The seeds of doubt about Laura's credibility have been planted. People are asking questions about her motives, her methods, and her reluctance to involve law enforcement in an alleged child safety issue. Patricia and several other neighbors approached me afterward with apologies and promises to investigate further. David, Miller, and I met at the garage that evening to plan our counter-strategy. Laura trapped me with fabricated evidence, but I have an idea, I tell them. She thinks she's won, so she'll get overconfident. We let her believe she's destroyed my credibility while we gather evidence to expose the truth. Miller, with his military background, immediately understands the tactical approach. Classic misdirection. Let the enemy think they've achieved victory while you prepare the real assault. David adds technical expertise. I can prove that video was professionally edited, but we need to present the evidence in a way that destroys her credibility completely. We decide to let Laura think her frame job succeeded while we build an airtight case against her criminal operation. Jennifer's reaction when I get home breaks my heart. Parents are avoiding us. The Morrison family won't let their kids near our house anymore. The personal cost of Laura's attack is hitting my family hard. Laura's destroying my reputation with fabricated evidence, I tell her. What can we do? Jennifer asks, and I can hear the fear in her voice. We fight back with the truth, but first, we document every aspect of her criminal operation so thoroughly that her lies can't survive public scrutiny. Despite everything Laura has thrown at us, I'm more determined than ever to expose her crimes and clear my family's name. Laura thought she'd destroyed me with fake surveillance footage, but when someone frames you in front of your whole community, you don't back down. You fight back with everything you've got. 2 hours after the HOA meeting ends, Jennifer gets a text from an unknown number. Your husband made a serious mistake tonight. Check your car. We rush outside to find all 4 tires slashed and a note under the windshield wiper that makes my blood freeze. This is just the beginning. Sunday morning, 3 a.m., I wake up to the sound of glass breaking downstairs. Someone just threw a brick through our living room window, but it's not the property damage that terrifies me. It's what's wrapped around that brick. A photograph of Jennifer leaving work yesterday, with "soon" written across her face in red marker. Laura Stone has escalated from character assassination to direct threats against my family. This isn't about parking violations anymore. This is about silencing someone who got too close to a criminal operation that generates serious money. I'm staring at this photo, hands shaking with rage and fear, when Tyler appears at our front door. He's practically vibrating with panic, looking over his shoulder every few seconds like he expects Laura's people to drag him back. Michael, they're coming for you tonight, Tyler blurts out as soon as I open the door. Laura found out about the GPS tracker, and she's lost it completely. You need to disappear, now. Wait, What GPS tracker? Tyler sees my confusion and realizes he's revealed something I wasn't supposed to know yet. The one David put on my car when you sabotaged it. My mind races to catch up with this revelation. David never mentioned placing a tracking device during our conversations about Tyler's vehicle. Tyler, slow down. What sabotage? What GPS tracker? His eyes widen as he realizes Laura told him something that wasn't true. You didn't sabotage my car? He asks, genuinely confused. Laura said you destroyed the engine, the tires, everything. She showed me the GPS tracker she found underneath. That's when I understand David has been running his own parallel investigation, and somehow Tyler's car got destroyed in the process. Tyler collapses into our entryway chair, and for the first time since I've known him, he drops the tough guy act completely. I never wanted a stolen car, he admits, tears actually forming in his eyes. Laura said it was temporary, just until my trust fund paperwork cleared through probate court. The kid starts explaining his whole situation, and suddenly his arrogant behavior makes perfect sense. My parents died in a car accident 18 months ago. Laura became my legal guardian because she was my mom's best friend and the only person willing to take responsibility for an adult ward. Tyler wipes his nose with his sleeve like the scared young man he actually is underneath all that attitude. She controls everything, my money, my living situation, even what car I drive, said I owed her a successful life in return for taking care of me. The trust fund revelation explains Laura's motivation perfectly. She's been stealing your inheritance? Tyler nods miserably. The bank statements our neighbor found prove it. Monthly transfers from my parents' life insurance settlement straight into Laura's personal accounts. She's supposed to be managing my money until I turn 25, but she's been spending it on herself for almost 2 years. This adds financial elder abuse to the growing list of Laura's crimes. Why didn't you report her? I ask. Tyler's laugh is bitter and hollow. Report her to whom? She's the HOA president. She controls my housing, and she convinced the probate court that I'm emotionally unstable due to grief. If I challenge her authority, she'll have me declared incompetent and institutionalized. Laura Stone has created the perfect victim, someone with no family, no independent income, and no legal standing to challenge her authority. Tyler explains how the car theft operation works while I'm bandaging cuts from the broken window glass. Laura targets disabled veterans because their injuries make them less likely to chase down thieves or pursue lengthy legal battles. She has contacts at medical facilities who identify valuable vehicles in hospital parking lots. The calculated cruelty of this strategy makes me sick. The cars get moved through a network of storage units and temporary locations while paperwork gets forged. Laura uses her HOA connections to create legitimate-looking documentation for stolen vehicles. Tyler's role was simple: drive the car around the neighborhood to make it look like normal resident activity, while Laura arranged sales to private buyers. She told me it was a temporary favor while my legal situation got resolved. I believed her because I was grieving and had nowhere else to go. Here's where David's GPS strategy becomes clear. While I was building evidence through community investigation, David was running electronic surveillance to track Tyler's vehicle movements. Your friend David found me at the storage facility 3 days ago, Tyler continues. He explained about the veteran who owned my car originally. That's when I realized Laura hadn't just lied about the car being temporary. She'd made me complicit in stealing from a wounded warrior. David had convinced Tyler to cooperate with tracking Laura's operation, promising protection in exchange for evidence about the broader criminal network. But Laura discovered the GPS device yesterday during a routine check. She knows you're working with outside investigators now. The mechanical sabotage story finally makes sense when Tyler explains David's real plan. Your friend destroyed my car's engine to prevent Laura from moving it to a different location. The GPS tracker was recording every place the vehicle went: storage units, chop shops, buyer meetings. David said you needed time to build a legal case while he built a tracking database. The sabotage wasn't revenge, it was evidence preservation. By disabling the vehicle, David prevented Laura from disposing of physical evidence while the GPS collected location data about her criminal network. But now Laura knows we're all working together. She's convinced you're either law enforcement or working with federal investigators. Tyler's warning about tonight becomes more urgent as he explains Laura's desperation. She's moving everything: cars, paperwork, financial records. By tomorrow morning, the entire operation will be relocated to a different state. Laura believes my investigation has attracted federal attention, so She's implementing an emergency evacuation protocol. What about you? I asked Tyler. She's shipping me to a care facility in Nevada, where I'll be isolated from any investigation. Once I'm declared incompetent due to grief-related mental health issues, she'll have complete control over my inheritance permanently. Laura Stone has planned Tyler's disappearance as thoroughly as she planned my character assassination. But Tyler's presence at my door tonight represents something Laura didn't anticipate, her victim developing a conscience. I can't let Miller suffer because of my cowardice, Tyler says, referring to the veteran whose car he's been driving. That man served our country and came home injured. I've been driving his recovery symbol around like it belongs to me. Tyler hands me a key. David said to give you this if Laura discovered the GPS. It's for storage unit 47 at the facility on Maple Street. That's where she keeps documentation about the entire network. And this key represents evidence that could expose not just Laura's operation, but similar networks across multiple states. As we're cleaning up the glass from the broken window, Tyler looks directly at me with more courage than I've seen from him yet. Michael, I know I've been awful to you and your family. Laura told me you were trying to destroy my thief, but I understand now that you're trying to save it. He glances at the photo of Jennifer with "soon" written across it. They're coming for you tonight. Laura hired someone to handle you permanently. You need to disappear now. If someone threatened your family to keep you quiet about a crime, what would you do? Stand and fight, or run to protect them? Drop your thoughts below. I genuinely want to know how you'd handle this impossible choice. Monday morning, I should be at work, but instead I'm sitting in David's garage with Miller, Tyler, and a pile of evidence that could bring down a multi-state criminal operation. The storage unit key Tyler provided led us to a treasure trove of documentation: falsified vehicle registrations, forged Guardian papers, bank statements showing systematic theft from disabled victims and orphaned wards. But here's what really shocks me. Laura Stone isn't just stealing cars and inheritance money. She's running a full-scale identity theft operation, targeting the most vulnerable people in our society. Miller studies the documents with military precision, while Tyler explains each piece of evidence. These are bank routing numbers for accounts in Nevada, Arizona, and Colorado, Tyler says, pointing to financial records. Laura moves money between states to avoid detection by any single jurisdiction. The scope of Laura's criminal empire becomes clear as we organize the evidence. She's not just Tyler's guardian, she's been appointed legal guardian for 7 other young adults whose parents died in accidents. Each ward provides access to life insurance settlements, Social Security benefits, and inheritance funds that Laura systematically diverts to her personal accounts. The car theft operation funds the guardian scam, Miller realizes, connecting the dots between financial crimes. Stolen vehicles provide immediate cash flow while she waits for probate courts to approve her guardian appointments. Tyler nods grimly. She targets families with significant assets but no living relatives who might ask questions about financial management. Laura Stone has created a perfect criminal system that preys on society's most vulnerable members while hiding behind legitimate legal appointments. But our investigation hits a snag when we realize Laura has discovered our evidence gathering. Patricia calls me on Monday afternoon with urgent information. Michael, Laura came to my apartment this morning with bank statements that didn't burn completely. She wants them back. And the documents Patricia rescued from Laura's fire pit contain proof of the inheritance theft, but now Laura knows we have physical evidence of her financial crimes. She wasn't asking nicely, Patricia continues, her voice shaking. She brought 2 large men who made it very clear that refusing wasn't an option. Laura Stone is now using physical intimidation against elderly residents to recover evidence. I gave her the documents I found, but I kept copies hidden in my bedroom safe. Patricia's quick thinking preserved evidence while protecting herself from Laura's escalating violence. Tuesday afternoon, Laura makes her most desperate move yet. She appears at my front door with those same 2 intimidating men Tyler warned me about. These aren't community handymen or HOA contractors. These are professional enforcers who look like they've handled problems for criminal organizations before. Michael, this is your final warning. Back off Tyler's situation immediately. Or what? I ask, genuinely curious about how far she's willing to escalate. Or your family might experience the same type of accidents that happened to Tyler's parents. The way she emphasizes accidents makes it clear we're not talking about random misfortune. Are you threatening my wife? Laura's smile doesn't reach her eyes. I'm explaining the consequences of interfering with legal guardian arrangements and HOA community safety protocols. What happens next reveals the depth of Laura's desperation and cruelty. Tyler appears behind her, physically shaking with terror. His face is bruised, and he's holding his left arm like it might be injured. "Michael, she's serious about the threats," Tyler says, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please stop the investigation before someone gets hurt." I realize Laura has been using physical violence to control Tyler's cooperation. "What happened to your parents, Tyler?" I ask, looking directly at Laura while speaking. Tyler's eyes fill with tears. "Car accident on Mountain View Road. Laura says the brake lines were cut, but police ruled it accidental due to winter road conditions. Laura Stone just admitted to murdering Tyler's parents to gain control of his inheritance. The woman standing on my doorstep is responsible for multiple deaths in addition to car theft and financial fraud. But Laura's overconfidence leads to a critical mistake. She assumes her intimidation tactics will silence me permanently, so she starts revealing details about her operation that she should keep secret. $30,000 cash, plus a guarantee your family stays safe," she offers, sliding an envelope across my kitchen table. I'm secretly recording this entire conversation on my phone. "That sounds like attempted bribery and extortion," I point out. "Call it whatever helps you sleep peacefully," Laura responds, "but sleeping safely requires cooperation with community leadership decisions." Every word she speaks creates evidence of multiple felonies that prosecutors will use to ensure lengthy federal sentences. "Your investigation has attracted unwanted attention from outside authorities. That attention needs to disappear along with your accusations." The community response to Laura's intimidation campaign reveals how thoroughly she's miscalculated our neighborhood dynamics. Instead of isolating me, her threats have galvanized neighbors who were already suspicious about her methods. David has been quietly sharing his technical analysis of the fake surveillance video with residents who have law enforcement or military backgrounds. Patricia has been showing the recovered financial documents to neighbors who understand accounting fraud. Miller has been explaining how car theft networks operate to families who have veterans in their immediate circles. Laura's assumption that she could control community opinion through fear has backfired spectacularly. Wednesday evening, our neighbors organize an independent investigation that bypasses Laura's HOA authority completely. Patricia leads a meeting in the community center after hours, attended by 15 families who no longer trust Laura's leadership. "We have independent evidence of Laura's criminal activities," Patricia announces, displaying copied financial documents on a projection screen. Bank transfers showing theft from Tyler's inheritance, photographs of meetings with suspicious individuals, and recordings of threats against families who ask questions. The neighbor who works for the county prosecutor's office explains how guardian abuse cases typically develop. Financial exploitation of vulnerable adults carries federal penalties when it crosses state lines. Car theft involving disabled veterans triggers additional federal charges. David presents his complete technical analysis proving Laura's surveillance video was professionally fabricated. Multiple editing sessions, impossible lighting angles, composite imaging techniques typically used by professional production studios. His presentation destroys any remaining credibility Laura might have with undecided residents. Someone with significant resources and technical expertise created this evidence specifically to frame Michael Smith. The room buzzes with angry conversations about HOA presidents who abuse their authority to cover criminal operations. Several neighbors volunteer to provide security for families who've been threatened by Laura's enforcement team. Thursday morning, Tyler makes a decision that changes everything about our strategic approach. He appears at our door with a black eye and obvious finger-shaped bruises on his throat, carrying a backpack with everything he owns. "I can't stay with Laura anymore," he says simply. "She's planning to have me committed to a psychiatric facility in Nevada this weekend. Once I'm declared mentally incompetent, she'll have permanent control over my inheritance and legal status." Jennifer immediately starts treating Tyler's injuries while I call Miller and David for an emergency meeting. "I want to testify publicly about everything Laura's done. Car theft, inheritance fraud, murder, all of it." Tyler's courage in the face of Laura's violence represents a turning point in our fight for justice. But Tyler's escape triggers Laura's most dangerous response yet. Thursday evening, while we're planning our public exposure strategy, Tyler gets a text message that makes him go completely pale. "Laura knows I'm here. She says I have until midnight to return voluntarily, or she'll implement permanent solutions for all cooperation problems." Tyler shows me the message, and my blood runs cold. What does she mean by permanent solutions? Tyler's voice shakes as he explains Laura's final protocol. "Everyone who knows about her operation gets eliminated. Accidents, disappearances, whatever it takes to protect the network. Laura Stone has moved from threatening witnesses to planning their deaths. As we're laying out security measures, Tyler speaks with a steadiness I haven't heard before. Michael, I know I was part of the problem at first. Laura twisted me, made me her shield. But I see it now. You've been trying to save me, not destroy me. He gestures toward the photo of Jennifer defaced with the word soon. His voice cracks, but his eyes stay locked on mine. She won't stop at threats. You need to prepare like it's war, because Laura's next move won't leave room for mistakes. For the first time, Tyler sounds less like a frightened kid and more like an ally willing to fight back. Friday morning arrives with the kind of tension that makes you feel like you're living inside a thriller movie. Miller calls me at 6 a.m. with news that changes our entire strategic situation. Michael, I need to tell you something I should have mentioned earlier. I've been working with federal investigators for months, tracking stolen vehicle networks that target disabled veterans. My coffee mug stops halfway to my lips. You've been undercover this whole time? Not undercover, exactly. Consulting. When David mentioned a smart neighbor asking the right questions about a suspicious Porsche, I saw an opportunity to finally get inside evidence we couldn't access through official channels. Miller explains that when our GPS tracker led federal agents to the storage facility, it triggered a broader investigation into organized crime networks operating through HOA communities. The federal coordination becomes clear as Miller explains the scope of their investigation. Agent Smith has been tracking Laura Stone's network across 3 counties. Your evidence about the Guardian fraud gave us the missing pieces we needed to connect car theft, identity theft, and organized racketeering charges. This explains why Laura became so desperate about my investigation. She wasn't just worried about local police discovering Tyler's stolen car. She was terrified about federal agents uncovering a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise that spans multiple states. The warehouse raid last night recovered 6 stolen luxury vehicles and financial documents showing systematic exploitation of vulnerable adults. Miller's military background prepared him perfectly for coordinating with federal law enforcement to expose criminals who prey on veterans and orphans. What makes our timing flawless is Laura's arrogance. She isn't calling a routine smear session like last time. This Friday, she's staging a full community update, complete with press invitations and scripted announcements. Miller explains her plan. She's going to parade Tyler's supposed psychiatric transfer and spin your family's exit as voluntary to prove her version of events to the cameras. Laura wants legitimacy, not just neighborhood whispers. She's betting a polished performance will cement her authority. What she doesn't know is that federal agents have wired the room, the media is primed, and her victory speech is about to become live evidence of racketeering. The community center fills up on Friday evening with residents, local news crews, and federal agents positioned discreetly throughout the audience. Laura takes her position at the front podium, completely confident that her intimidation campaign has silenced all opposition to her authority. Residents, tonight we're addressing the resolution of recent community safety concerns, she begins, clicking through slides that show fabricated documentation about Tyler's mental health treatment and my family's voluntary relocation. Tyler Morgan will be receiving specialized care for grief-related psychological issues, while the Smith family has decided to relocate to ensure community harmony. Laura's presentation portrays criminal witness elimination as voluntary community healing. But before Laura can continue her narrative, I stand up and walk toward the front of the room. The cameras start rolling as I address our community directly. Before we discuss any departures, residents deserve the truth about criminal activity that's been operating in our neighborhood. Laura's confident expression falters as she realizes I'm not following her script. Tyler Morgan has been driving a Porsche stolen from disabled veteran Staff Sergeant Miller. Laura Stone is not Tyler's mother. She's his legal guardian who's been stealing his inheritance while running a car theft network that targets wounded warriors. The room erupts in shocked conversations as residents process the magnitude of crimes happening under their noses. Miller chooses this moment for his dramatic entrance. Staff Sergeant Miller walks into the community center wearing his dress uniform, with federal agents Smith and Thompson flanking him like an honor guard. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to recover my stolen vehicle and see justice served for those who harbor criminals in your community. The sight of a decorated combat veteran confronting the people who stole his recovery symbol creates powerful visual testimony for the news cameras. Miller approaches the microphone with a military bearing that commands immediate respect from everyone present. 8 months ago, criminals stole my car while I was receiving treatment for service-connected injuries. Tonight, we're exposing the network that preys on disabled veterans and orphaned young adults. Laura's public breakdown happens faster than anyone expects. "This is an orchestrated setup," she shouts, pointing accusingly at me and Miller. "Michael Smith has been conducting unauthorized surveillance and making false accusations to cover his own predatory behavior." But Agent Smith steps forward with federal credentials that immediately change the room's dynamics. "Laura Stone, you're under arrest for racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit vehicle theft, and financial exploitation of vulnerable adults." The federal charges carry weight that overwhelms Laura's desperate attempts to maintain control through manipulation. "You have the right to remain silent, and I strongly recommend you exercise that right immediately." David chooses this perfect moment to present his complete technical analysis of Laura's fake surveillance video. Using the community center's projection system, he displays side-by-side comparisons showing impossible lighting angles, composite imaging artifacts, and metadata proving professional editing software was used to fabricate evidence. This surveillance footage was created specifically to frame Michael Smith as a predator when he was actually investigating federal crimes. David's technical presentation destroys any remaining credibility Laura might have with community members who were undecided about the accusations. Professional video editing was used to composite Michael's image into fake surveillance scenarios designed to silence his investigation of organized crime. Tyler's public testimony provides the emotional climax our community needs to understand the human cost of Laura's crimes. "I want everyone to know the truth about what Laura Stone has done to my family and our community." Tyler stands at the microphone with visible injuries from Laura's violence, speaking with courage that transforms him from entitled brat to courageous witness. "Laura murdered my parents to gain control of my inheritance. She forced me to drive a car stolen from a wounded veteran. She's been stealing money meant for my future while threatening families who ask questions about her criminal operation." Tyler's testimony connects all the evidence into a narrative that exposes the systematic victimization of society's most vulnerable members. The community's organized response demonstrates how effectively our neighbors have coordinated independent evidence gathering. Patricia presents the financial documents showing inheritance theft. Our neighbor, who works for the prosecutor's office, explains how guardian fraud networks typically operate. The retired police officer describes suspicious activities he's observed around Laura's storage unit meetings. David displays technical evidence proving video fabrication. Miller explains how car theft networks target disabled veterans. Every presentation builds toward undeniable proof that Laura Stone has been running a criminal enterprise from her HOA presidency. Agent Smith reveals the scope of federal charges during Laura's arrest. Laura Stone's network has stolen vehicles worth over $2 million while systematically exploiting vulnerable adults across 3 states. Guardian fraud involving interstate financial crimes carries federal sentences up to 20 years per victim. The magnitude of Laura's criminal enterprise shocks residents who thought they were dealing with simple HOA corruption. Tyler Morgan's cooperation as a witness will result in reduced charges, while his testimony will help us prosecute similar networks operating in other communities. Federal justice provides protection for victims, while ensuring criminals face appropriate consequences for preying on veterans and orphans. But Laura's final words as federal agents escort her from the community center send a chill through everyone present. As she's being led away in handcuffs, Laura turns back toward me with this terrifying smile that suggests her arrest isn't the end of our conflict. "You have no idea how deep this goes, Michael," she mouths silently, her eyes promising future retribution from criminal associates who haven't been arrested yet. "This network has connections you'll never uncover." Agent Smith immediately increases security protocols for witnesses and their families, but Laura's final threat reminds us that organized crime rarely operates in isolation. Exposing one criminal network often reveals connections to larger organizations that view witness cooperation as a threat requiring permanent solutions. The media coverage of Laura's arrest creates exactly the public accountability our community demanded. Local news broadcasts feature interviews with Miller about veteran targeting, technical analysis of video fabrication, and Tyler's courage in testifying against his abuser. Federal agents arrest HOA president for running criminal network targeting disabled veterans, becomes the headline that ensures Laura's crimes receive appropriate public scrutiny. Our suburban parking dispute has exposed organized crime that required federal intervention, proving that ordinary citizens who ask the right questions can protect vulnerable members of society from sophisticated predators. But as the federal agents led Laura away in handcuffs, she turned back to me with that chilling smile and mouthed something that made my blood freeze. "You have no idea how deep this goes." What the hell did that mean? 3 months later, federal justice has been served with the kind of thoroughness that makes you believe that the system actually works sometimes. Laura Stone received 8 years in federal prison for racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit vehicle theft, and financial exploitation of vulnerable adults. The judge called her crimes particularly heinous because they targeted disabled veterans and orphaned young adults who deserved protection, not predation. Tyler received 2 years probation with community service for his cooperation in exposing the entire network. His testimony helped federal prosecutors build cases against car theft operations in Nevada, Arizona, and Colorado that were connected to Laura's Guardian fraud scheme. Miller's Porsche has been fully restored from the damage David's sabotage strategy caused during evidence preservation. "Your friend's destruction actually saved my car from disappearing forever," Miller tells me, while we're admiring the pristine red finish in his garage. "If David hadn't disabled the vehicle and planted that GPS tracker, Laura would have moved everything out of state before federal agents could build their case." And the mechanical sabotage that looked like vandalism was actually sophisticated evidence preservation that ensured criminals couldn't destroy physical proof of their crimes. Miller drives his recovery symbol daily now, and every time I see that Porsche in our neighborhood, it reminds me that justice sometimes requires ordinary citizens to take extraordinary risks. Our community has undergone a complete transformation since Laura's arrest exposed the criminal network operating under our noses. New HOA leadership and implements transparency policies that prevent future corruption. We've established veteran appreciation programs that honor military families while watching for signs of targeting by criminal networks. Tyler has become an advocate for guardian abuse prevention, using his experience to help other young adults recognize financial exploitation before it destroys their futures. "Laura manipulated my grief and isolation to steal my parents' legacy," Tyler explains during community presentations. "But Michael's investigation saved my life and protected other families from similar victimization." The personal vindication feels almost surreal after months of being portrayed as a predator and a troublemaker. Jennifer watches me park in spot 23 every morning with this satisfied smile. "You went from suspected stalker to community hero in 3 months, she observes. "Truth has a way of surfacing when people work together," I reply, thinking about how David's technical expertise, Miller's federal coordination, Patricia's evidence preservation, and Tyler's courage combined to expose a sophisticated criminal enterprise. That fake surveillance video backfired spectacularly. Laura Stone underestimated neighbors who understand technology, investigation techniques, and the difference between legitimate authority and criminal manipulation. Every morning when I park in spot 23, I see Miller's restored Porsche and remember that sometimes accountants who notice details can protect heroes from predators. Laura's attempt to frame me as a surveillance threat led to actual surveillance, breaking up a criminal network that was destroying lives across multiple states. Our community now has a motto displayed in the community center: "Vigilant neighbors, protected veterans." Michael's investigation became a template for community crime prevention that federal agents recommend to other HOA communities worried about organized crime infiltration. Tyler successfully completed his community service at the Veterans Center, where Miller receives treatment, creating friendships that help both men heal from their experiences with Laura's crimes. Laura's stolen criminal assets now fund veteran support programs that provide security systems and financial counseling to prevent future targeting by similar networks. Sometimes the best revenge really is watching justice work exactly the way it's supposed to work, protecting the innocent while ensuring criminals face consequences that match the severity of their crimes against society's most vulnerable members. That's how a simple parking dispute became a federal case that changed our entire community. Here at Echo Stories, we believe that ordinary people can expose extraordinary crimes when they refuse to stay silent. If this story of suburban justice resonated with you, hit that like button. Hello everyone, and I'll see you in the next video where we explore another incredible true story of everyday heroes standing up to corruption.